you guys, and welcome back. I am still battling this cold, so any prayers would be greatly appreciated. And I am just going to jump right on into prayer. Father God, I thank you so much for being with us. I ask that you would open our hearts and our minds to your truth, Father. I thank you for your commands, Father, for your laws that you've put into place that keep us from harm, Father, that gives us a guide and keeps us safe in a very unsafe world. Father, I just praise you so much for loving us. I ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. We are getting into Acts 23 and Psalm 19, right? Yes, Psalm 19. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right on in. Gazing intently at the high council, or the Sanhedrin, Paul began, "Brothers, I have always lived before God with a clear conscience." Instantly, Ananias the high priest commanded those close to Paul to slap him in the mouth. But Paul said to them, "God will slap you, you corrupt hypocrite. What kind of judge are you to break the law yourself by ordering me struck like that?" And he's talking not only about the Roman law, which prohibits anyone from unjustly punishing a Roman citizen, which Paul is, but also the Jewish law. If we take a look at Deuteronomy 19, is this? No, that's not it. Here it is. Deuteronomy 19, starting in 15. "You must not convict anyone of a crime on the testimony of only one witness. The facts of the case must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If a malicious witness comes forward and accuses someone of a crime, then both the accuser and the accused must appear before the Lord by coming to the priests and judges in office at the time. The judges must investigate the case thoroughly. And by meting out justice before the case was even heard at the first sentence, he was breaking the law by jumping the gun in that. Those standing near Paul said to him, "Do you dare to insult God's high priest?" In verse 5, Paul says, "I'm sorry, brothers, I didn't realize that he was the high priest." Paul replied, "For the scriptures say you must not speak evil of any of your rulers." And we are going back to Exodus 22:28, which says, "You must not dishonor God or curse any of your rulers." And so Paul is again demonstrating that he is a Pharisee. He knows the rules. He follows the rules, and the law is not. They are arguing here that he is just discarding the law, and he's not. He's saying that Jesus has fulfilled the law, that he's, made the law greater, and they're just not getting it. Paul realized that some members of the high council were Sadducees and some were Pharisees, so he shouted, "Brothers, I am a Pharisee, as were my ancestors, and I am on trial because my hope is in the resurrection of the dead," which would be Jesus that he's talking about here, and also to get them arguing. This divided the council, the Pharisees against the Sadducees. For the Sadducees said that there are no resurrection or angels or spirits, but the Pharisees believe in all of these. So there was a great uproar. Some of the teachers of the religious law, who were Pharisees, jumped up and began to argue forcefully. "We see nothing wrong with him," they shouted. Perhaps a spirit or an angel spoke to him. As the conflict grew more violent, the commanders were afraid that they would tear Paul apart. So he ordered his soldiers to go and rescue him by force and to take him back to the fortress. That night the Lord appeared to Paul and said, "Be encouraged, Paul. Just as you have been a witness to me here in Jerusalem, you must preach the good news in Rome as well." And so he has that promise that this is not the end. Good morning, Cheryl. It's nice to see you. The next morning, a group of Jews got together and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they had killed Paul. There were more than 40 of them in the conspiracy. They went to the leading priests and elders and told them, "We have bound ourselves with an oath to eat nothing until we have killed Paul. So you and the high council should ask the commander to bring Paul back to the council again. Pretend that you want to examine this case more fully. We will kill him on the way." But Paul's nephew, his sister's son, heard their plan and went to the fortress and told Paul. Paul called for one of the Roman officers and said, "Take this young man to the commander. He has something important to tell him." So the officer did, explaining, "Paul, the prisoner, called me over and asked me to bring this young man to you because he has something to tell you." The commander took his hand, led him aside, and asked, "What is it that you want to tell me?" Paul's nephew told him, "Some Jews are going to ask you to bring Paul before the high council." I love you too, Cheryl. You're wonderful. Pretending that they want to get some more information. But don't do it. There are more than 40 men hidden along the way to ambush them. They have vowed not to eat or drink anything until they have killed him. They are ready now, just waiting for your consent. Don't let anyone know that you told me this," the commander warned the young man. And just as an aside, because I was curious, I wondered if they had died, because obviously they didn't kill Paul. And apparently there are 4 ways in which an oath could be broken, and one of them is if it's just not possible anymore. And so I guess they would have been able to break their vow in that instance. Then the commander called 2 of his officers and ordered, "Get 200 soldiers ready to leave for Caesarea at 9 o'clock tonight. Also take 200 spearmen and 70 mounted troops. Provide horses for Paul to ride and get him safely to Governor Felix." Then he wrote this letter to the governor. "From Claudius to His Excellency, Governor Felix, greetings. This man was seized by some Jews, and they were about to kill him when I arrived with the troops. When I learned that he was a Roman citizen, I removed him to safety, and then I took him to their high council to try to learn the basis of the accusations against him. I soon discovered that the charge was something regarding their religious law, certainly nothing worthy of imprisonment or death, but when I was informed of the plot to kill him, I immediately sent him on to you. I have told his accusers to bring their charges before you." So that night, as ordered, the soldiers took Paul as far as Antipatris, and they returned to the fortress the next morning, while the mounted troops took him on to Caesarea. When they arrived in Caesarea, they presented Paul and the letter to Governor Felix. He read it, and then asked Paul what province he was from. "Cilicia," Paul answered. "I will hear your case myself when your accusers arrive," the governor told him. And then the governor ordered him kept in the prison at Herod's headquarters. Okay, and we are now moving on to Psalm 19. Oh, and this is a beautiful one. "The heavens proclaim the glory of God. The skies display his craftsmanship. Day after day they continue to speak. Night after night they make him known. They speak without a sound or word. Their voices are never heard. Yet their message has gone out throughout the earth, and their words to all the world." And I don't know about you guys, but when I get out into nature, a peace just settles over my soul, and I can just feel the God that created that nature. And I think that's what he means when he says that all nature just praises God, and you can't help but be out there and wonder about the God that made all that beauty. Um, God has made a home in the heavens for the sun. It bursts forth like a radiant bridegroom after his wedding. It rejoices like a great athlete, eager to run the race. The sun rises at one end of the heavens and follows its course to the other end. Nothing can hide from its heat. The instructions of the Lord are perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The commandments of the Lord are right, bringing joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are clear, giving insight for living. So right here it's saying that the instructions of the Lord, they revive the soul, they make wise the simple, they bring joy, and they give insight for living. Reverence for the Lord is pure, lasting forever. The laws of the Lord are true, each one is fair. They are more desirable than gold, even the finest gold. They are sweeter than honey, even honey dripping from the comb. They are a warning to your servant, a great reward for those who obey them. How can I know all of the sins lurking in my heart? Cleanse me from these hidden faults. And I just have to say that that the more that I look into Scripture and the more that I really dig into His Word, the more God opens my eyes and reveals ways that I need to change my life that I never even knew about. Sins that I didn't even know were sins. Sins that for another person may be perfectly fine, but for me, perhaps I made something an idol in my life that's not, God needs to be the most important thing in my life, and perhaps I made something an idol in my life that I need to deal with, and God opens my eyes to that, and it's a wonderful thing, because when I place things in my life that are more important than God, I put things out of whack, and I hold on to things that I don't need to hold on to. How can I know all the sins lurking in my heart? Cleanse me from these hidden faults. Keep your servant from deliberate sins. Don't let them control me. Then I will be free of guilt and innocent of great sin. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. And that is my prayer every single time before I do one of these. I do a prayer before I push the live button. And I just pray that God would be honored through this, that His words would be known, and that His ideas would be shared, and that He would be honored and glorified through all of this. And I just thank you guys so much for being with me, for honoring God through digging into His Scripture. And I am so glad to be on this journey, and today especially with you, Cheryl. So, all right, I will see you guys later.